All right, so today we're going to be talking about probably a concept you're wondering, and it's basically getting data from our entries. All right, so let me just quickly create my Tkinter application. As you can see, it was blank, and now I'm adding some data into it. So let me just get our three basic entities into my code. All right, awesome. So we're going to be creating a very simple calculator app, okay? Actually over here, let me just say from Tkinter import everything, okay? So the way this app is going to work is the user enters an expression, then we get whatever the user enters, we evaluate it, and then we push it back out and update a label, all right? So this is the way it's going to work. What I want to do is, let's quickly talk about the basic principle here. We learned about inbuilt functions, or if you haven't, don't worry. Inbuilt functions here, the one we want to use is the evaluate function. So the evaluate function takes in any expression and it evaluates it, so we'll be using that. Let's get started. First thing first, let's go ahead and create our entry. So I'm going to call my entry E, so E is equal to entry. And in my entry, I'm just going to put in my root. So nothing too bizarre. And the way this is going to work is the user presses the enter key. And as soon as the enter key is pressed, a function is triggered. And whatever expression the user's entered will be evaluated. So if you remember in the previous lecture, we talked about binding. So just like it's a left and right arrow key, the left and right clicks, there's also one for the enter key. So go ahead and add that bind, e.bind. And the two parameters, the first one is going to be return. So return, if you're on a Mac, stands for enter. Otherwise, you normally have an enter key on a Windows keyboard. So the function you want to call, let's go ahead and call that evaluate. Okay. We haven't created an evaluate function, so let's go ahead and do that. Def evaluate. And all this evaluate function is going to do is, hey, it's going to update a label that we haven't even created yet. So, think of it like this. Whenever we hit the enter key, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get whatever E holds, all right? So whatever our entry holds, whatever value it holds, we're going to get that data. So to do that, let's go ahead and create a variable. I'm going to call this data and set that equal to e.get, all right? So this e.get function basically returns any data or all the data that has been entered into your entry object. All right, so data will now hold our expression. And all we have to do now is update our label with the new, what would you say? We want to update our label with the new value. So whatever the expression evaluates to, we want to update it with that. So let's go ahead and create our label over here. I'm going to call this answer. So ans is going to be equal to label. Again, nothing too fancy over here. So ans is equal to label root. And all we have to do now is just pack this in. Okay. Go ahead and for the E, make sure you pack this in as well. Cool. So now that we've created our variable, let's go ahead and set the text. So whenever you have already created a variable and from someplace else you're setting the text, the way you do that is using the configure function. So what you can say is ans.configure, okay? And text will now be equal to, what do we want it to be? Answer, and then you can do something along the lines of plus str eval data. Okay, so that looks good. And go ahead, save this. Everything looks fine over here. Command S F5. Let's take a look. All right, so we have in our shell an error that says evaluate is not defined. Obviously, evaluate is not defined because we spelled it wrong. So evaluate. Command S F5. Let's do this one more time. Restart, as you can see, looks good. Let's get the whole restart over there, and I'm going to open this up. Fantastic. So we have our small text entry, and we have a label at the bottom, as you can see. That's why there's a gap. Let's go ahead and add an expression, 15 plus 20. or 15 plus 20. And it gives us an error. It says over here, evaluate takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So here's our first, what would you say, maybe bug, okay? Taking a look back at our shell, where's our shell? Python shell. It says over here, evaluate takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. And let's take a look why this is happening. So remember, with any e.bind, we have to put the event parameter inside of the function. So that was my bad. I accidentally forgot about that. Go ahead. Let's run this again. And now hopefully we should get a running build. So 15 plus 20. Take a look. Pretty neat, right? So let's quickly cover what just happened. All right. If you ever have an entry, to get that entry's value, whatever value it has currently, you call the function e.get. All right. Now for this simple calculator, all we were doing is whatever expression the user has entered, we're storing that into a variable called data, and then we're evaluating data, converting it into a string, and then configuring our label's text value to become the new data or the new answer. So let's go ahead and try another one. I'm going to say 35 into 7, 245, pretty sweet. One last one, 90 divided by 10, 9. So again, a very, very simple but fun to use Python calculator. Now, definitely let's go ahead and add a label up top. And all this label is going to say, enter your expression. So I don't like leaving that blank space. I'm going to say label 1 is equal to label, part of root, and text is equal to enter your expression. Okay. And then what I want to do is, that looks good, and label 1.pack. Okay, Command S, F5, and now it'll look a little bit more neater, right? So you actually have a sense of what's happening. We have enter your expression, that gives us a hint that, hey, this is a calculator app. Let's go ahead and enter some stuff. So I'm going to do one more, 42 into 5 plus 3. And if you notice over here, the operation of PEMDAS does occur. So instead of doing 5 plus 3 first and then doing 8 into 42, it knew that multiplication comes first, did 42 into 5 first, and then added the 3. So again, guys, a very interesting application. You can definitely build on this. Go ahead, play around with it. But the basic goal of this lecture was to understand how to get this entry's value. All right, so once the user enters the value and he hits enter or some button, how to get that entry's value. So maybe as a challenge in one of the future lectures, we can go ahead and actually create a fully GUI-based calculator, actually having that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons, and also using the plus, minus, multiply, and divide signs. I mean, it's something to think about. Maybe at the end of this Tkinter section, we can definitely create a very cool looking calculator app. See you in the next lecture.